would like to introduce Chairwoman of the LA World Affairs Council and Town Hall, Secretary Contreras Sweet.
What a treat it is to see you all here tonight. You know, I know that one of the most important, most valuable assets that we have is our time. And so when you impart a little bit of that time with us, we know that it's a generous gift that we hope will be rewarding at the end of the evening. I'm Maria Contreras Sweet. I have the very, very fortunate, I'll call it privilege for tonight, of chairing this wonderful organization. The reason I hold it in great esteem is because we had these two venerable organizations in Los Angeles, the Los Angeles World Fairs Council and Town Hall of Los Angeles, both with really remarkable programming, and they came together to form one. And so I was thrilled when the board, after I returned back from Washington, D.C., serving as your cabinet secretary over the U.S. Small Business Administration, that the chamber would reach out to me and ask me to chair this very illustrious group. And in that regard, I'd like to ask the board of directors of the Los Angeles World Affairs Council to please stand and be recognized, and let us express our gratitude to you for your leadership. Thank you. Thank you so much. I believe so deeply in democracy making, deepening democracy. We all know that particularly these days, times are tough, regardless of what side you're on, regardless of your point of view. We want to be able to have a decent conversation, civil discourse, civic engagement in a nice, peaceful manner. And so what I love about this organization and its uniqueness is it's the only place in Los Angeles where you can talk directly. You get to ask the questions of top thought leaders in our country. This is the place. Since I've taken office, we've had General Petraeus, we've had cabinet secretaries like the Health and Human Services, Javier Becerra, talking about our supply chain with Administrator of the USSBA, Isabella Guzman, talking about energy in the transition, or is it the expansion? We've had conversations like that with the Chairman and CEO, Mike Wirth of Chevron, and we've also had some fun along the way. We've been able to go together to go visit and explore SpaceX with a private tour. We've been able to go to the Broad Plaza and the Broad Museum and escorted through the museum by Edie Broad herself. Very, very special opportunities, and we've got much more in store. So if you're not a member yet, please think about it. Secondly, I wanted to tell you why I'm thrilled that we picked this venue. Before I became a member of the President's Cabinet, I was a Cabinet Secretary in California as your Secretary of Transportation. Now, when I got that call, my son was 8 years old, 8 years old, and I thought about the opportunity to serve my state, to invest in infrastructure, land use, connectivity, sound walls, all the things that the Secretary of Transportation gets to deploy. But I also thought about the challenges to my family. And so it was a very, very serious decision for me. And I was very, very pleased that many times when the governor was calling me about, do I sign this? Should I veto this? And we were going back and forth. This lovely 8-year-old son said to me, I kept saying, oh, honey, I know you wish I were at home. And he says, no, Mom, you're doing very important work. I understand it. And I can't tell you that that brought me to tears because I was tucking him into bed every night over the phone. I was in Sacramento, he was in Los Angeles. So when it got to the opportunity to bring him to a high school, we thought hard, and he came to Loyola High School. And I'll still remember Father Greg Goethals telling us then, he says, you're going to give us your son, your young son, and we're going to give you a mature, value-laden young man. And I was so taken in by that. So, of course, we were living in the San Gabriel Valley, and we were commuting a really long way. It was a great, great effort. But at the end, like all of you, when your high school son graduates from high school, you're there with great joy and pride, and you have all the family there. And so the awards were given out. This is our valedictorian. Here's the Athlete Scholar of the Year, just on. And I was videoing it just like any mom would. And at the very end of it, something I'd never heard before, they said, apart from all of those academic, athletic awards, we have a very special award that we think represents what Loyola is all about, a man for others. And so as Father Goethals announced the recipient of the St. Ignatius Award. And when he said Antonio Sweet, I was so touched that that is what we were able to get this beautiful young man, and that you gave him the award that you said represents St. Ignatius the most. Thank you for that. Thank you so much for that. So this has become a very special school for us. Um, Last, let me just tell you that none of these programs could happen without the generosity of you, yourselves, your membership. Go a long way to make this happen. And we're fortunate to have not only board members, such as the Bob Abernethy family, the Linda Boone Feder family, we've had the Richard Mader family, all have been very, very generous to us. And we have board members in addition to that who have also been very generous with their year-end gifts. So please thank them along the way for their generosity to make these programs happen for all of us. And of course, the corporations behind us, like Chevron, like Bank of America, so many of the banks along the way. So I want to thank all of them for making this program possible. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, as we think about it, may my story inspire you to get more involved in deepening democracy. I was born in Mexico, came here at the age of 5, learned to speak English, tried to navigate my way through, and my grandmother said, Maria, when I called her to tell her I was the 4th grade milk monitor, she said, it's not about the titles you have, Maria. It's about what you do with the titles that you have. So I was very fortunate then to think hard about what I could do with those titles, and that the good Lord heard her and understood the California harvest opportunity with such bounty, like no other place on the planet. And that I was able to go from a child of migrant workers to become, as my grandmother said, someday you'll work in an office and you'll be a secretary. Little did she know that I would hold office and be a presidential cabinet secretary, representing the United States around the world. Only in America does that happen. Let's make sure that we continue to have an informed citizenry, to have sound elections, civil debate, public discourse, and let's make sure that America continues to have its exceptionalism and the majesty, the role that we play in the US and around the world. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you. For that, I bring you up the wonderful leader of this beautiful institution, Father Greg Goethals. Thank you.
Maria, sorry. I should know that I've used a microphone in this room many times. I should know how it all works. My name is Father Greg Goethals. I am the president of Loyola High School. We're the oldest continuing educational institution in Southern California. Rick was our board chair for 6 years, so we've got a lot of and we have great. How many of you are Loyola related in the room? So thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here tonight. It is a privilege and a pleasure to open our doors to the World Affairs Council. This is something my sister Betsy was involved, who now lives in South Pass, was very much involved in this for a long, long time, used to take my parents to meetings. But what goes on at these meetings is very, very important for our democracy. It allows people, as Maria, you said, to hear voices you might not otherwise hear, and hear them up close and personal, and know that the people that are involved in decision making are real human beings. One of the things that we like to do at Loyola is make sure and we're an all boys school, we're 160 years old as in June. This is our 5th location. This building is 100 years old. This room was the Jesuit community's dining room, and no one was allowed back here except for the student workers that used to serve the Jesuits. One of whom was Conrad Hilton, or no, one of whom was Baron Hilton, who actually got kicked out of Loyola because he stole ice cream from the kitchen. So there's that. But if you're in a very historic place, I always say that as long as there is a Los Angeles to serve, there has to be a Loyola to serve Los Angeles. As a Jesuit Catholic school, forming these young men in God's image and likeness as men for and with others is a very important thing for all that we do and all that we are. And Rick is a wonderful part of our community. So we're thrilled that he is here tonight, thrilled that we used to have our board meetings in this room, so he knows this room very, very well. But it's a very, very wonderful and important thing to be able to do. And for us to host this is an honor. So thank you guys so much for that. Am I introducing anybody else? What am I doing? Oh, yes. David, please come forward, who is the head of the, yes, exactly. David, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Father. Well, it's great to be with you all today. I haven't even said anything, but thank you. It's great to be with you all today. Actually, this is my first time on this campus, so it's really my pleasure to welcome you as we're on the road with the World Affairs Council. If you're following along, and I hope you are, and I hope you're thinking about membership if you're not a member, and if you are one of our members, we've had an exciting couple of months. Maria referred to it. We had the chairman CEO of Chevron at the California Club a few weeks ago. Coincidentally, that's where the World Affairs Council was founded over 75 years ago. Continuing our theme of business competitiveness, the chairman and CEO of Chevron talked about so many things: his life, his ascension in Chevron, and the very difficult decision to leave California after 150 years in the Golden State. The conversation was intimate, much like the one tonight's going to be. A week and a half ago, we had the former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, in one of the rare in-person public visits that I can recall speaking to a community. Kevin enlightened us all with the challenges abroad, the challenges at home, and competitiveness on a global stage with friends, allies, and some adversaries, including China. Very intimate conversation, engagement with the audience, Q&A afterwards, and to my complete delight, Kevin stayed for about 45 minutes to anyone that wanted to talk to him afterwards. Tonight will be no exception. I don't know about the 45 minutes afterwards. Sorry, Rick. Maybe it'll stay for Alex. But I want to tell you that's what the heart and soul is of this organization. We want to continue this discussion, this theme on competitiveness in California. And today we've talked about California, we've talked about the US, and today we're going to talk about Southern California in this city, this great city. I think you're going to find we knocked it out of the park with who we have for you tonight. Let me start with the first guest that we have for you. Many of you probably know him. He is everywhere on the political scene. Federal, state, county, city, he knows them all. They know him. He's been at political debates. He's been described as charismatic, intelligent, and he's pretty good in front of the camera. Elex Michaelson. Did you think I was talking about somebody else? As you'll come to find out, Alex is a super underachiever. Alex went to the University of Southern California, where he finished first in his class. He grabbed 2 degrees, broadcast journalism and political science, and picked up some of those Latin phrases, summa cum laude and phi beta kappa. You know him best probably as the Fox News 11 co-anchor here in Los Angeles. So we're super excited that Alex is joining us. Likewise, I don't think the next individual needs any introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. And it's really where to begin. You could start with an individual that, as a young real estate transaction attorney, understood early on what it means to be a responsible citizen and be engaged in your community. You could talk about achieving a vision of becoming an investor and developer of five-star hospitality businesses, residences, finding Southern Californian communities a place to gather, live, work, and dine, and have incredible, exceptional experiences together. But it's far beyond the business and the investment in this city that Rick Caruso brings, and Father talked about it. His biggest impacts extend far beyond the business and into what I like to think of as responsible citizenship. And that is something that I think is being lost today. And we need to get it back as parents, with our children, and in our community. But as I mentioned, it started early with Rick Caruso. Former Mayor Tom Bradley tapped Rick as the youngest commissioner, as an early young lawyer, to serve as commissioner on the Department of Water and Power, where he helped deliver policies to deliver safe water to our cities. A few years later, at a time that was very difficult in Los Angeles. Rick served as a member and commissioner of the LA Police Commission and also served as its president. A very difficult time in Los Angeles, and we were fortunate to have Rick Caruso steering us to safer communities and safer city for all of our Angelinos. The area I think about walking around this campus is perhaps one of the biggest areas of impact the Caruso family has made, and that's in education. There's a lot of nodding up here. You can walk around this campus, you can see it at Loyola High School where his talent and expertise is brought to bear, not in some passive way, but as an active, engaged member. You can see it as an alum from another USC alum. You can see it there at University of Southern California's campus. I think his first gift, Rick, you'll have to correct me, was $50 to the Interfraternity Council at USC a year before you even graduated. Very special. We all know that his philanthropy for him and Tina and the family extends to every corner of that campus today. Multiple disciplines. It's hard to walk around this campus or USC without seeing a lot of effort and time outside of his day job. And finally, something very special to me, Rick made a transformative gift to another Southern California university, Pepperdine. Through Rick's generosity, Pepperdine School of Law, now the Caruso School of Law, stands as one of the finest law schools in the nation and attracts some of the brightest minds to campus. Just a few weeks ago, Pepperdine hosted a sitting United States Supreme Court justice to be their guest at their annual dinner. And how proud I was as a fellow alum to be there. And I thank you for that. So I want to let you all know, I think we nailed it tonight. It hasn't even started by having Alex and Rick for this conversation about LA's competitiveness. I'd like them to invite them up to come up and have that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that introduction with no notes was really impressive. That you memorized all those facts about us was something else. Well, it is great to be here, especially in the middle of a Dodger game. And the fact that you all still came out here is something. But if you do have score updates, feel free to give them to me. It is incredible to be on this campus. Rick and I did something similar to this in Orange County. Raise your hand if you were there for that. Okay, so we've got a few folks, but this is new material for most. That's good. Just to guide us on where we go. And because we're both USC people, are there any other USC people in the house? We got some in the back. This place feels a lot like USC. Loyola has a similar vibe, and I'm sure Rick has something to do with that. Obviously, we've got some tough questions to get to, but before we start in that, Rick, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to reflect on what this place means to you.
Well, thank you, Alex, and thank you, Father Goethals, and thank you to the World Affairs Council and everybody being here, having me today. So I didn't go to Loyola, and Father Goethals gives me a hard time that I didn't go to Loyola. I wish I had, in hindsight, but our third son, Justin, attended Loyola. We have 4 kids, and it was transformational for him. And I tell you, I'll just give you one quick example of what the school stands for and why I was so honored when I was asked to be on the board and then to be chair for a number of years. When you're a senior at this school, as you know, in many high schools, an enormous amount of pressure on being a senior. You're worried about getting in college, making sure your grades are the best they can be in order to get admitted to colleges, all those kind of things. What does Loyola do? Loyola says you're going to take, I think it's 3 weeks of your life. You're not going to be in class. You're going to go out in the community and you're going to give back. You're going to be a man for others. Justin Caruso decided he was going to go serve at St. Lawrence School in Watts, where he grew up alongside of his sister and 2 brothers and me and Tina, serving the poorest community in Los Angeles in a school that is so sweet and so dear that actually is one of the only rays of hope for a community that is living below the poverty line. And most of those kids are living in housing projects and actually have drills when there's gunfire of how to get down and be safe. And every morning for 3 weeks, he got in his car by himself and drove to that community, worked all day, served it, and came back. And then when you come back, all the parents after 3 weeks and all the kids, one by one, stand up and talk about how they serve the community. Okay, I'm a pretty emotional guy anyway. But me, along with hundreds of other people, were sitting there crying, listening to one student after another talking about how they serve their community. This school changes young men, just like you were talking about, to be really men that give back. So I think it's the greatest institution in Los Angeles. I'll say that in front of USC and I'll say it in front of Pepperdine. Because without this school, they're not ready to go into those bigger universities and go into life and make a meaningful difference to reach their hand out and bring somebody along with them. So it's a remarkable place.
And
Thanks for the
a big,
commercial.
and a big testament goes to Father Greg for
He's
that
the
as
best.
well.
20 years here.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start with the question that people actually really care about. Are you running for governor?
I don't know yet.
You don't know
I'll
yet.
give
So,
you the honest answer.
yeah, what's the process in
I'm
deciding?
going to take a look at it. Listen, I love public service. I think public service is great. I wanted to be mayor in the worst way in the world. Didn't get the chance, got it. Okay, that's the way it goes. So I'm going to look at it. A lot of people are encouraging me to do it. We're going to get past this noise that's happening right now in the presidential election. We're going to do some work and do some polling, and then we'll make a decision if there's a path. I don't know.
What's the timetable?
Well, I'd have to make a decision early next year.
Early next year. And you're thinking more governor than run for mayor again?
I think both options are on the table. I don't know. I really feel like the city has a lot of problems that still need to get fixed. We can get into that if you want. And this state has a lot of problems. I love situations that have complex problems that have to get solved. That's why I became the chair of SC when it was in a terrible state. What fascinated me is how you can go in, unbundle the problem, solve the problem, build a team, change the culture, put it back together, and move forward. That fascinates me. That excites me. It's what I did in my own industry. And so, yes, I'm attracted to that at the state level and the city level. My heart is with the city. My heart is with the state, but we'll see what happens.
Do you think that there is a bit of a political...
Should I run? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't have to say yes. You don't have to say yes because that's like an easy, gratuitous thing, and I'll feel better going home
What
now.
would the path? Well, let's. If you're going to go there, then I'll go one step further. What would the path be? Because this state hasn't elected a Republican since Arnold
I'm
Schwarzenegger
not a
in
Republican.
2006. You're not a Republican
Yeah.
anymore. But I'm sure some of the folks who are much further on the left than you would say that you used to be, or they would try to lump you in that way.
Sure.
What would the path be? What would the lane be if you were to do this?
Well, that's what we're going to find out with polling. But just based on the numbers, this state runs much more moderate. So I'm a very moderate Democrat. I believe in fiscal
The state is more
responsibility.
moderate than the city.
The state is much more moderate than the city. So you look at Orange County, San Diego County, Kern County. I mean, you go up Sacramento County, there's very much a moderate lane. And so there may be a lane. There may also be a lane in the city of people frustrated that the problems aren't getting fixed. And maybe it's time to get them fixed. So, who knows? I'm not looking to be a candidate again. I'm just, when you care about something, you want to fix something. And that's what, like I said, I did at SC, I did at LAPD, and that was fascinating to me too.
Do you feel like there is a political adjustment that is happening now in the city? When you look back in 2020 and somebody like George Gascon is elected,
Yeah.
at a time when Black Lives Matter had so much power and there was this push for real criminal justice reform. And now you look at the polling, somebody you endorsed, Nathan Hochman, up
Yeah.
30 points.
Right.
The push on Prop 36, which would reform Prop 47, up even more than that.
Right.
What do you think is going on right now politically, even among some who consider themselves progressives?
Listen, I can't speak for everybody in this room. I will tell you, I think people are fed up. I think people are frustrated. I think people feel unsafe no matter where you live. I think the crime problem is in every corner of the city now. I think the homeless issues are in every corner of the city now. You feel terrible when you see the drug addiction going on. And you got to ask yourself, I think we all ask ourselves, why the hell isn't it getting fixed? You're spending billions and billions of dollars to fix problems, and they're not being fixed. So I think even people who are more left leaning are saying we can't live like this anymore because I just look at those two towers downtown with the graffiti. That is a billboard that this city is in decay. And how sad is that? We can't even fix that, right? And so I think leadership matters. And I think people are getting to the point, as they should, they want to hold their leadership accountable. And by the way, just as a footnote, George Gascon used to be a Republican too. I left the Republican Party 10 years ago. I don't know how long it takes to sort of get that off of you, but I think
You know, though, if you ran, that would be a thing. You know
well,
that.
it's a you know why it's a thing?
Yeah.
It's a thing because it's an easy hit.
Right.
And if you can't be intellectual and you can't be intelligent and you don't have the facts, go to easy hits.
Yeah.
And that's what happened in the mayor's campaign. So I get it. I was just back in I just flew in from Washington D.C. I mean, it's it's a crazy city back there right now.
Yeah.
And so things get too partisan. I think it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat or independent. I think, and I hope, maybe this is a prayer more than what I think, that people just want a good quality of life and having their elected officials actually doing their job.
And part of what you did in Washington, you met with the Harris campaign, right?
I met with the head of her campaign finance committee. Yeah.
And um, what's the update there? How do you feel about that race right now?
Does anybody know Rufus Gifford, who's heading the campaign? You know what they've raised almost $2 billion. Now I don't know what that says about our democracy. I was there with my son, who got admitted today in the Supreme Court bar, which was a very cool ceremony.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and I thank you. He did all the work. I didn't do any of it. I've never been in the Supreme Court building before. Driven by it hundreds of times. That building is magnificent inside, and the chambers. If I could just say for a second, it gave me so much excitement and enthusiasm in our country and our democracy to be in those chambers, to walk down the hall and see the portraits of justices appointed by George Washington. We heard an oral argument about a provision, and the justices are talking about whether or not Congress can do that. That is our democracy, that we have these three systems of checks and balances. I don't know. I just thought it was fantastic. I don't know if $2 billion is a healthy thing to be happening. They feel very confident. But at the same time, as I said to him, if I went to somebody on the Trump campaign, I'm sure they would tell me they would feel very confident. But he genuinely feels confident that they're going to take the election.
Why do you think the election's so close?
Um, that's a good question. I think people are desperate for hope for the future. I don't know. What a crazy season it's been, right? You have a sitting president that's moved to the side. You have somebody that is pushed up to the front. You got a former president that, what's that?
A candidate that's shot?
Candidate gets
Almost
shot.
gets killed in the middle of the race?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I I find it fascinating. It's going to be an amazing case study for many, many years. I don't know.
The Supreme Court is an amazing place to be. I've been lucky to report from there. It is the hardest place to report from
Mm.
because they don't allow any video cameras, obviously, but they also don't even allow
You
at the
couldn't bring
time
your phone
audio.
in.
You couldn't
Yeah.
bring your phone in, so it was
Right.
just notepads and trying to follow these very smart, sometimes older people as they talk kind of quietly
Yeah.
and make sense of all the legal stuff is complicated. Those are some of the best reporters in the country. So, how do you see the state of our economy right now? Well, before I get into that, you said the problems aren't getting fixed.
Right.
The problem's here. Why aren't they getting fixed, and how do you fix them? We could do that for the rest of the session.
Yeah.
But
We
but
could.
what do you think is the biggest obstacle to progress in this city?
Lack of good leadership, lack of the ability to make tough decisions, the willingness to make tough decisions. I think the lack of knowledge of how to make tough decisions, uh, and follow something through to build the right team to get things done. Um, I mean, if you just take the metrics, we have a terrible homeless problem that's not getting better. We have more drugs on the street than ever before. Um, we have crime that's rising. We have home invasions that's rising. We live in Brentwood Park. We used to have no crime in Brentwood Park. 70% increase in crime in Brentwood Park. And I don't care if you live in Brentwood Park or South LA or Palisades or Venice Beach, crime is rising everywhere. And you don't, you've got the police force dwindling. We have the lowest amount of cops per capita in the recent history of Los Angeles. At any given point in time, this number is not talked about very much. At any given point in time, there's maybe 300 or 400 officers on the street throughout the city. Throughout the city. The bad people know that. And they know they can commit a crime. The response time is going to be slow. It's not that the cops want that. There's not enough of them. And our cops are literally handcuffed in doing their job because of rules Garcetti put in and rules that since haven't been changed. So you're not going to change things unless you're big and bold and smart and have courage.
What do you make of Jim McDonald being appointed as chief of LAPD?
I think the great news is that Karen Bass had two great choices with Amada and with Jimmy. And I think Jimmy was a great, great choice, especially given challenges that we have and the knowledge. And I talked to Amada and I said, she would have been a great chief of police. If you don't know her, she's
So
tremendous.
Amada Tingrides
Yeah.
is assistant chief right now. She has made a lot of efforts in community policing over
She's
the
been
years,
incredible.
worked in Watts especially, and as somebody you've supported for years and
Yeah.
we've known and profiled for years, and she is an amazing person.
An amazing
She
person.
was considered, I guess, the number 2 person that but they
So-
ended up picking Jim McDonald, who had been the LA County Sheriff before.
And he was a deputy chief at LAPD. So when Jimmy was deputy chief of LAPD and I was the police commissioner, the president of it, and we ended up picking Bill Bratton, I convinced Jimmy to work with Bill, although he was disappointed not getting the job. They became a great team, and Jimmy became a better cop working under Bill, and Bill became a better chief working with Jimmy. And what I hope is that the mayor encourages them to work together in that same form and fashion because she really knows the city, and Jimmy is one of the best cops in the country, and I think they can make a great team and make a big difference.
Of course, Mayor Bass would say on homelessness that the homeless count actually went down for the first time in many years, a 10% reduction in homelessness. They point to that as some progress.
It didn't go down 10%. It went down 2%, which is a rounding error, and after billions of dollars spent. So
Right.
that's just not true. But why don't you tell me how many homes have been built for the homeless? 0 in 2 years.
So,
And I think she promised to get 15,000 people off the street. I think you reported that, but
Yeah.
nobody talks about it anymore. She also talked about increasing the police force. It's gone down.
so you're in there, or you're in there in 2 years or whenever. How do you? How
Well,
do
I'm
you?
not saying I'm going to be in there.
How do? No,
I'm
but
just saying we should hold people accountable.
if
They
you were
make
in
a
there,
promise. If I make a promise in my company, I have to keep my promise.
so how do you do that though? How would you do it differently?
You start building. My God, it's not that complicated. you get rid of the red tape that we have in this city. You encourage people to build in this city. You welcome them in this city. We're building housing for the homeless at a clip of 800,000 a unit. This is insane. The the providers like Downtown Women's Center that I've talked about are maybe around 500,000. I think you can get it down to 300,000. You know, there's solutions to every one of these problems, but to just do nothing doesn't make any sense at all. We have more people. I don't know of anybody, you tell me, maybe I'm wrong, that feels like this city has gotten safer, cleaner, healthier, more business friendly in the last couple of years. I don't feel it. I don't know of anybody who feels it. So if you're not feeling it, things aren't happening. And you've got small businesses closing. When you have Norm Langers that puts out a plea that he's got to close that restaurant after 70 years because of the amount of crime and homelessness around him, he's one guy who represents hundreds and hundreds of small businesses that are suffering like he is, but doesn't have a big voice. Steve Lopez gave him a big voice. Did you see the article that Steve Lopez wrote about Fire Station 11? Okay. I was down at Fire Station 11. I spent time down there in the campaign to learn what the challenges are. He wrote a great article. I sent an email to Steve, which he hasn't responded to. I don't expect him to. And said, Steve, why didn't you talk about the fact that they run out of supplies? Because the city doesn't have the funding to give the supplies to the officers they need. Why don't you talk about the other stations that are having the same exact problem, tending to people overdosing on the streets and not responding to fires, responding to people dying on the streets because of the amount of drugs on the street? And why don't you talk about who's accountable for this and why it's not being changed? There was no mention in there. And that's what has to start happening if you want change, making people accountable. And I'm frankly, not because I'm a candidate, I don't think I'm going to be a candidate. I don't know. But I'm just, as a citizen, tired of it.
In your business, you're the boss. But if you're the mayor or the governor, there's all these other interest groups. You've got the city council with all their own agendas. You've got the county board of supervisor with all their own agendas. You got the unions with their agendas. You've got protesters and everything else. How do you navigate all of that mess to keep things moving in your direction when you're getting pulled in all these other directions, and maybe their agenda isn't necessarily progress, their agenda is protecting themselves and protecting their people?
Listen, no doubt. And that's what good leadership is about. And having the experience of being a good CEO and knowing how to bring people together and find common ground and have a good team that knows how to find solutions. You're never going to get 100% of what you want. But if you get 50% of what you want and you start moving the ball forward and you allow everybody to feel the success of that, the enjoyment of that, to watch the progress. I did it at LAPD. They were burning me in effigy. At that time, when I fired Bernie Parks, they burned me in effigy in front of LAPD. Tina called my wife and said, she was screaming on the phone, they're burning you. And I said, I'll be home at 7 o'clock. We're going to have dinner together. I'll have a drink. Everything's fine. There was an enormous amount of pushback to not fire Bernie Parks. There was outrage that Bernie Parks was fired, and we hired this guy from Boston with this accent to come in that isn't even from LA. That was a tough decision. The unions were against me. A big part of the community was against me. Thank God Jimmy Hahn was a tough mayor and said, just do what's right. We did what's right, and the crime in the city got down to levels not seen since 1950. But if I had cared about being reappointed or reelected, I would have never made that decision. What I cared about was what is in the best interest of the city. End of story, end of day. Make your decision.
What's the, yeah, what, for me as an observer, what seems to be kind of frustrating is it seems like the city is not taking a big swing It seems like a lot of what's happening is sort of around the edges. Yeah, it's great to get a block of people in to a motel room. I mean, that's nice. And then some people go down the street to another spot, but there isn't like a big, systemic, radical change. We've got a radical problem. There needs to be something big that happens. What do you think is that big swing that's missing?
Well, radical is a great word because in the Jesuit community, the Jesuits believe in radical thinking in the most positive of ways. So that's perfect timing to be on this campus. I think there's a number of things they have to do. You have to set some real serious goals and hold people in City Hall accountable for it. We're going to get X amount of housing units for the homeless with the services they need, the wraparound services they need by X date. I said I would get 30,000 units built in a year. There was no doubt in my mind I could get that done with wraparound services. You look at Houston, Houston dropped their homeless population by 67%. Now, why can Houston do it? And then I'll hear, well, they had less homeless. I don't know. 67% of anything is 67%.
So, how'd they do it?
They started building housing. They got on the streets. They got interaction. They made a commitment they're going to do it. They didn't tolerate it. At some point, you cannot give a choice to live on the street. You cannot give a choice to have your home in a median, in front of a school, in front of a business. But it's just basic stuff. It's just basic stuff. Look at the communities around us. Like I said, I was in Washington, D.C. a couple of hours ago. That city has to be the most political city in the world. I didn't see one encampment. Sidewalks were immaculate. The common area lawns were green and beautiful. Find a green lawn in LA in a park. Why is that? Why is the median strip in Brentwood dead? Why are parks throughout this city, the grass, dead? How can that be with the budget we have, the wealth we have? It's just not managed right, and we waste an enormous amount of money.
So,
I
part
don't
of
think these problems are that complicated. I
part
think elected officials make them complicated.
part of the challenge that we've seen in California is a sort of fraught relationship between business and the state and the city in some cases. How does that get better? Or how do you see it? How do you see the state of business relations? Maybe I'm making a judgment
Well,
here.
you stop pushing them out to start. But I can tell you, I see Rob Lowe here. Rob and his old buddy Dick Reardon and a whole group of people years ago got together and turned this city around. And they got businesses involved.
It's the mayor of Beverly Hills we're talking
Huh?
about. Oh, sorry.
No,
Oh, sorry.
Rob Lowe of Lowe Enterprises.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
But Dick Reardon did it. Before Dick Reardon, Tom Bradley did it. When I worked for Tom Bradley, it was call the CEOs, get everybody together, get them engaged, get them involved. I've got a pretty good sized business in the city of Los Angeles. I never got, and I knew Eric, I never got one call from Eric Garcetti saying, is there anything we can do to help you grow your business in the city of Los Angeles? Not one time. And if I didn't get a call, I'm sure others didn't get a call. So you have to engage people, no different than you have to engage community people. You have to engage people that are giving back to the community. You've just got to work the troops. And so I think businesses feel excluded. I still have not gotten a call. You know, how can we help? How can we lean in? How can we contribute? I tried, we have Pan Pacific Park right next to the Grove. When Eric was mayor, I went to Eric and I said, I will adopt that park and we'll improve that park. We'll put all the money in it because it was the lawn was dead. It was full of drug dealers. It was a mess, and you had kids showing up to play basketball and baseball and little league. It was a mess. No, we can't do that. That would set a bad precedent. They're doing it in New York, but you can't do that in LA. So I just think to go to your radical thinking, think outside the box. Think about finding solutions, and I think great things will happen.
And maybe think about engaging people with money and incentive to fix it. Might be a smart way to do it.
maybe
So
goodwill.
if the city called you or the state called you, if Governor Newsom called you and said, "What can we do to make life better for your business, make life better for the Grove?" What would your answer be?
Listen, there's a long list, and I don't think it's getting any freebies. I don't think anybody in business wants a freebie. They just want a fair, balanced sort of plate that they can compete on. That businesses in California can be as competitive as businesses in other states. Businesses in Los Angeles can be as competitive as a business in Glendale or Culver City or whatnot. What all of us realize is you can take your business in LA City and move it to the city of Glendale. There's no gross receipts tax in Glendale. There is in LA City. You can go literally 1 foot over the city boundary line. And so the question is, am I getting back the cost that I'm giving the city in taxes for being in the city of Los Angeles? And the answer is now no. And so you see cities, we're in Glendale. It's an incredibly good city to do business in, very business friendly, a great police force. I mean, doing all the right things, not pushovers by any stretch. They're very demanding of their businesses to do the right thing, but it's a great city. Culver City, look at the growth in Culver City. Look at the headquarters that are in Culver City. Have you walked Culver City? The sidewalks are clean. Breaking news. There's no homeless encampments on the sidewalks that I saw. Why? You go across the street to LA, very different. That's just bad management. It's the same geography. So,
And wasn't it amazing also that after this Grants Pass Supreme Court decision, which was a Supreme Court decision that allowed for cities and counties to put more enforcement for homeless encampments, to get people out, there were a lot of cities and counties that said, finally, we've got an opportunity to do it. And LA was worried that those people would start heading to their city because LA didn't want to do the enforcement.
who didn't want to do it? Karen Bass didn't want to do it. She came out and said, we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Leadership starts at the top. That sets the tone. So now you have a city and you have the mayor of San Francisco that very clearly said, we're giving people bus passes to go down to LA. Did you read that? And did you read the article today in the LA Times that the estimate to solving the homeless problem in LA, given the path we're on and the programs we're using, is $22 billion and will not be solved in a decade? Is somebody in City Hall saying, maybe we need to change how we're doing business? That was by a RAND study. It's craziness.
Oh, this is a great advertising for the LA Times. Clearly, clearly you're reading. We got to
Now,
tell their reporters at least they got an audience of one. Yeah.
It's not worth reading.
We know
Trust
how
me.
to get. We know how to get to you.
Read the New York Times,
yeah,
Wall Street
yeah,
Journal.
yeah. Finally, we are moving to the Q&A portion of this. Anybody here have a question for Mr. Caruso? Yes. Oh, we got mics. Let's wait for the mic, I guess. And why not introduce yourself too? Tell us your name.
Hi, my name is Alex Michaelson. I'm a senior at Loyola High School.
Congratulations.
All right.
You gonna go to SC?
It's on my list.
Okay.
We haven't
I hope
That's
I
a
get
political answer. You sound like a.
It's a Bruin.
You were speaking about how cities in Southern California can model from other cities around the world. You talked about Texas, the homeless situation in Texas, but what can other cities around the world take from or learn from LA? Like what policies do we have in effect that other cities can model that would help their situations as well?
Good question. Listen, I truly believe, I'm critical of the leadership of the city, but I still believe LA is the greatest city in the world by far. No doubt about it. And the reason it reaffirmed my belief on the campaign trail. The diversity of this city is our biggest strength. The fact that we have so many different communities with so many different cultures that all live and work together is incredible. and we should celebrate that. That really is our strength. And I think many other cities are not that way. They're very homogeneous, but LA is not. You can go from the Filipino community, the Black community, Latino community, the Italian community, Chinese community. And if you haven't done it, you should go around and see all of these communities because they're spectacular. The food is great, the people are great, and the culture is great. And that's what other cities can learn from us. We do a lot of things really well. We can just, I think the expectation should be a lot higher. And LA City should be the greatest city on all scorecards in the country.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. Yes, right here. Can we pass the microphone? Who's got the mic? Oh, okay. We got to be better at this choreography. We have a question over there? Did we have a question over there? Okay, I was going to say, we do. Okay. Yeah, there we go. And introduce yourself.
I will. Thank you. I'm Wilma Pender. I am a Trojan. Fight on.
Fight on.
I'm also a Bruin from that law school.
Boo.
And stop. And I'm also a Los Angeles Department of Water and Power Commissioner now.
Hey,
So if these
fantastic.
lights go out, it's me.
Yeah.
All right. Seriously, sir, I have nothing but honor and respect for you, and I know everyone agrees with me on that. Clap.
Thank you.
None of us can promise you that you can be the mayor. None of us can promise you that you can be the governor. We really are almost like disciples. I've followed you around. I've spoken to you at the California Club. I'm always right behind you. I just adore you.
Thank you.
Short of that, what can we do to help you do what you know needs to be done?
It's a great question. Thank you. And thank you for your support. I loved my time at DWP. You know, I'm sure you see those old pictures. Yeah, I mean, when I had a mustache and single. I'll give you an example, though, because I'll answer your question. I just want to say one other thing. At the time that I became a DWP commissioner, I was 27 years old. Tom Bradley appointed me. I knew nothing about water or power or riparian rights. And I walked into the main boardroom, which you know well, is this huge long table. And all around this table were all these gentlemen. And I walked in my first day, and the general manager at the time was a guy named Paul Lane. And I said, Mr. Lane, how are you? And he said, Commissioner, I want to let you know that I have worked here longer than you've been alive. Well, that put me on my heels. And it made me realize I better learn. And then Mayor Bradley called me, and we had an ongoing lawsuit for many, many decades between Inyo County and Los Angeles. Well, but the lawsuit, I mean, I'm sure there's disputes, no doubt. But Tom Bradley just said to me, this was a sign of a good leader. Go solve it, settle it, fix it. And every week I would fly up to Inyo County to meet with the County Board of Supervisors, a guy named Bob Campbell that was the head of it. We'd get on horseback, go for a ride, get to know each other. We settled that lawsuit that had long been since the days of William Mulholland. Now, again, I'm sure there's disputes, but I think what we need are leaders like Tom Bradley again that gets a bunch of people together and says, go fix that, and don't come back to me unless you have a solution. What you can do, I think, for the city, not for me, because we're all on the same team here, is literally start holding our officials accountable. I mean, it looks like we're finally going to hold Gascon accountable. But how many lives have been destroyed since we've done that? It's just tragic when you think about the amount of people that have died or been injured or live in fear because of him. And I know George very well. He was a captain at LAPD when I was down there. So I think it's being vocal and not worrying about being politically correct, not being mean in any way, just being very matter of fact saying the job isn't getting done, we need to get it done. We're demanding that you do your job. You're getting paid to do your job. Go get it done. Go hire more cops. Go police the streets. Go give the homeless a shelter. Go give them the services they need. Go help the Norm Langers of the world. I'm going to be down at and meeting Norm next week. I guarantee you nothing has changed since the mayor was down there and said, we'll get this fixed. I guarantee you nothing has changed. And that's sad.
Got a question over here.
Sorry, talking too long.
I'm Gwendolyn Williams, a Trojan and
Right on.
former assistant general manager at DWP under Ron Nichols, hired by Ron Nichols. And my question is, you kind of alluded, I think I know what your answer is going to be, but when you talk about what Southern California can learn from other cities, do you have any examples of cities that work well with their newspapers and their media to attain the goals that the citizenry wants to accomplish? Because, you know, my feeling is that the LA Times is just missing in action.
Well, I think it's a great point. I mean, the LA Times has a point of view, and it doesn't matter what the facts are, they're going to put out their point of view. And that's what I said to Steve Lopez. I said, I understand that you and your fellow journalists, and I love Steve, I've known him for 20 years, will never call out any of the current elected officials. I think it's sad. I miss the days when we actually had, you know, I'm old enough to remember the LA Times and the Herald Examiner. And having the two papers actually kept everybody a little bit honest. And I don't think the LA Times is a newspaper. I think there's some really good journalists that still work there, but they're not delivering just the news. I think the New York Times is actually a really good paper. I think the Washington Post is a really good paper. I read them both every morning along with the Wall Street Journal. I would love to see a change of ownership of the LA Times and just take it straight down the middle and report news. I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
Would
I mean,
you buy
Eli
it?
Broad at a time
Would
wanted
you
to
buy it?
Would I buy it? No, because I don't know how to. I try to stay in my lane. I don't know how to run a newspaper. If somebody was buying it, maybe I'd invest in it to support it. But I'd want somebody that's a really good newspaper person.
So I'm Julian Gold, the immediate former mayor of Beverly Hills. So you were close. Thank you.
Sorry.
I saw you
Sorry
there.
for misidentifying.
Thank you for being here. So I have one question from two perspectives. As the mayor of a local town, and I'm sure the issue is the same in Los Angeles, and actually as the former past president of Contract Cities Association, 80 cities, mostly in LA County, there is a broad perception amongst the leadership of cities that the hard-fought victories of local control, the ability of cities to control their own destiny, their own zoning, is being eroded or perhaps exploded by the folks in Sacramento. So the question to you is, from both sides, hypothetically, were you to be the mayor of Los Angeles, how do you push back against Sacramento's intrusion? And were you to be the governor of the state, how do you fix what clearly is legislature out of control?
It's a really good question, and I'm actually living it right now because we have a project up in Montecito where we're proposing to build workforce housing for our workers. It's very expensive to live in Montecito. I'm a big believer that you should take care of your workers, and it comes with some market rate housing and some retail that is the fuel that supports the cost of building the workforce housing, which is 75% affordable. The state mandate to do that and the new law to do that is frankly keeping not all, but some of the people in the government up there honest. What's interesting, the Board of Supervisors we think is very supportive. Our supervisor is very supportive. The county commission seems to be very supportive. There's others that aren't. I think the balance, in my opinion, if I was governor or whatnot, is you do it through incentives rather than through mandates. And every city, as you know better than I do, is very dependent on the state for many reasons. And you incentivize the cities to build more housing or do what you believe is in the greater interest of California, and you share that equally amongst every city, rather than get into what I believe is local control, which should remain local control, and not be mandating changes in local zoning. I think all cities have a problem with that.
Sir.
I'm Bob Lowe, not the mayor of.
One of the best developers around.
Thanks for being here. I couldn't agree more with your focus on to get progress. We need strong leadership. We need good, hard decisions, and we need building a team. With that, our drug problem has been with us in this city, in this country for decades. How can we get started at making progress on that issue?
It's a good question, Bob. I think it starts, if you haven't been to Skid Row lately, I will gladly meet you down there. Has anybody been to Skid Row? And don't feel bad if you haven't lately. Okay. It is worse than it's ever been. And part of what's worse is there is open sale of drugs by drug dealers with drug tents on Skid Row. You have to start enforcing the laws. And you got to let the cops go in there, take these encampments down that are selling the drugs, and start arresting people. It's an open flow. And it's around Langers, the sale of drugs. If you saw the video that I posted, which is just horrifying, we had a camera team go down there of people walking completely bent over. You know what that's from? Fentanyl. It destroys the muscles in your spine, and you are literally walking like a pretzel and a zombie. And they're walking around MacArthur Park. I mean, it's so sad. What the hell are we doing as a city? So let the officers go in there and arrest people, and hopefully with a new DA, they'll go to jail and not just be released again. You got to start there. We did it with Bratton 20 years ago. You all remember that. It was after the Rodney King beating, which was terrible. LAPD was under a judicial consent, which was terrible. We were losing more officers than we could hire. Crime was spiking. Nobody thought it was fixable. We changed the team, and it immediately changed. It can be fixed. I really believe it with the bottom of my heart. I think Jimmy McDonald will be a great start if you give him the tools to go do his job. Still be a good cop, never abuse anybody in the community, but just enforce the law fairly.
Back here, yes. Oh yeah, we never got you. Thank you. Sorry, thank you for your patience. Please say your name.
Yeah, Alex Flabbergos, class of 2013 at Loyola. Didn't go to USC, but my fiance is a Trojan, so soon to be marriage.
It's not a requirement to get in the room, but thank you.
What do you think about the future of provisions like Measure ULA, the mansion tax, and other initiatives that seem to increase the burden of home ownership as a way to solve the city's housing issues? We're early 30s. We've been saving our whole lives. We're ready to sort of buy our first home. So that's a real concern for us where we know, the mansion tax fell short on the revenue generation. There's not a lot of transparency in how the funds are used. So while we're looking to buy a home in LA, that's a big concern for us if it's a trend going forward.
It's a great question. The mansion tax, which is a misnomer anyway, it was a propaganda because it's on every home over what, $5 million in every commercial building. It's on everything. It has really hurt the real estate market in Los Angeles. And for somebody like you don't want to buy a home in LA because when you sell that home, you don't want to have to pay 5% of the increase in value. And so what you've done is you've just sent the signal to everybody, buy somewhere else, buy in Culver City, buy in Beverly Hills, buy in Glendale, buy outside the city of LA. Makes no sense. On top of it, we've already got a budget deficit this year in the city. I think $500 million. The city's going to be underwater. And you're spending billions of dollars on the homeless situation and nothing's changing. So to overtax people and not have any benefit for it makes no sense at all. But I don't know if that tax will ever be overturned, but I think it's very bad for the LA economy. Downtown buildings. Downtown is over 30% vacant now. You've got buildings, I think there's 9 buildings in foreclosure, Class A high-rise buildings in foreclosure. When that bank takes it back and they foreclose on it for the amount of their debt, they're paying a tax. They're taking a loss. I mean, the law is so bad, it was drafted in a way that's punitive, and I hope it gets changed sometime.
Can I do a follow-up to that? Why do you think that Century City, which is technically part of the city of Los Angeles, is such a success story compared to what you see in downtown Los Angeles? What can the rest of the city learn from Century City?
It's very simple. It's a great question. It's clean. It's safe. There's not encampments. Your building is not surrounded by vendors that are selling things that prevent you from getting your guests or your employees in the building. What CEO or business owner in their right mind wants to move their employees downtown where they're going to be putting up with the situation they've got down there? And so that's why it, it's just such basic reality of life, right? You're going to gravitate where you're happy, you're safe, you can be productive, your employees can be productive. And I've expressed this to the leadership of downtown. They've got to go fix this because the other terrible thing that's happening downtown, besides the office buildings in foreclosure, the small businesses that are dependent on daytime population, the local dry cleaner, the local restaurant, the local florist, they're all getting wiped out. The daytime population is so low right now. The restaurants, um, countless number of small businesses have closed. Clean it up.
But like Century City is in Los Angeles, so how do they
Right.
do it?
Well, but the difference in that area is you've got less homeless population living there, right? And it's not, frankly, as welcoming to the homeless population as downtown has been.
Yeah.
Right? So the homeless population's smart. They're going to go where there's services and where they're not going to be harassed, they're not going to be troubled.
Yeah. Other questions? Yes, right here, sir.
Hi, thanks, Chris. I'm Paul Rennie, the fairly recently arrived British Consul General here in Los Angeles.
Fantastic.
That's great, and obviously we can fight about the best city in the world later, sir. But
what would you say?
Well, of course, London.
London.
I mean, we can call it a tie, and alphabetically we can go first. How's that?
Okay.
Great. I mean, the real question is, it's just an incredibly exciting 4 years ahead in Los Angeles. The World Cup, the Olympics. It's, from our perspective, putting your city at the center of global attention. How would you like to see Los Angeles use that moment, to kind of think about international investors, its international moment in the sun? So we're really keen, having had London Olympics in 2012, was an amazing moment for our city, for us to bring in a lot of very interesting, exciting people. How could we work with you on that as Los Angelinos, but also how do you see that vision for the next 4 years coming together for an international audience?
It's an incredible opportunity. With the World Cup in 2 years and then the Olympics in 4 years, incredible opportunity. So we've got to put our best face forward. We have to show the world how great the city is. And then the question is, are we prepared to do that? Are we prepared to host people from around the world and have cameras in every corner and showing what LA is like? And so I hope people are ready, for that. I don't know. I'm not involved with the World Cup and I'm not involved with the Olympics. I think an enormous amount of work has got to get done. And I hope we don't squander that opportunity to highlight this city and have businesses benefit from that, have residents benefit from that. I remember back in the day, boy, Pete Ubroth in the '84 Olympics, they had this city buzzing, and it worked, and it was incredible and was profitable. To this day, there's still a foundation that's doling out money based on that. That should be the model. Really easy. Follow what works. Repeat and rinse. Follow what works.
Other question over here.
I'm Robert Dalrymple, new board member with the council. You're mentioning about Skid Row, and then you also mentioned that the mayor wanted to increase the number of police, but it's actually dropped. Why can't they find the money, or what's the reason that it's dropping when she had the intent of increasing it? And by the way, I've been a big admirer of your boat that you're bringing in the Marina Del Rey.
Okay, thank you. Listen, the problem, I think, and obviously there's others that are closer to the situation now. I can tell you when I came into it when we were losing a lot of police 20 years ago, the motivation wasn't there, the morale wasn't there at LAPD. An LAPD officer can leave and go work for Beverly Hills, where they're better incentivized, more appreciated, more respected. Officers, I believe, 99.9% every day wake up and they want to do the right thing. They're proud to put on their badge and they want to go make people feel safe and be safe. We've had a city here that has not allowed them to do that. We've had a city here that has not allowed them to actually engage, arrest, hold people accountable. They've changed the rules of engagement in LA. And so it becomes very frustrating, and you've got other options. And I think we need to send the message loud and clear to recruits. We want you here. We're going to respect you. We're going to allow you to do your job. We're going to hold you accountable to do your job in a way that's respectful to the community, but you get to do your job. And I don't think we've had that attitude here. I mean, would you want to be an LAPD officer here? It's tough. And they're really struggling. I talked to a lot of them because they want to do the right thing. And the fewer and fewer there are, the more difficult their job becomes every day, to respond. They're just spread so thin. So it's a tough situation. But we've got LA Fire very much underfunded, undersupplied, and they've got a lot of challenges there. We should be concerned about the response times of fire and paramedics, given the lack of funding that they have. I think we have to reprioritize our city budget and do our basic essentials to keep people safe and healthy, and make that a priority.
Last two
I've
questions here. Yeah.
got one right here. Hi, my name's Ariana. And you touched a bit on this at the beginning, but with the breakdown of the 2022 mayoral race, it's very clear based on the map of the voting percentages between you and Karen Bass that the city of LA is divided in who they want and how they believe leadership to fix the city. How do you unify and connect with the neighborhoods that want the same kind of leadership that we currently have and that have a very different vision than you and believe in this kind of status quo business as usual?
It's a great question. I don't really know how to answer it. I think that's the great thing about democracy, right? They had two very different choices, very different perspectives, very different backgrounds, and the voters of the city made a choice, and I accept that choice. I think that anytime a leader wins and anytime somebody loses, you want to be ingratiating and accept everybody and say, I'm going to lean in and I serve everybody. I think the priorities of the city are very clear, no matter where you are in the city. I think the question was during the campaign was, who can best accomplish those priorities? Everybody wanted it safer. Everybody wanted the homeless housed, right? Everybody wanted, a more livable community. So I don't really know how to answer that. I have not been critical of the mayor publicly. It's now 2 years in. And I think every new elected official deserves a year or two to get their footing, build their team, start getting some traction. I'm just at the point I don't see the traction. So I'm not trying to be a rebel rouser and I'm not trying to create a campaign for myself. I'm just frankly really, really sick of worrying about the safety of my kids. I am really sick knowing that there's a Chilean gang that is operating in the neighborhood where my daughter lives. That pisses me off. That shouldn't be happening. I'm tired of going down to Skid Row and seeing a multiple of people passed out on the street. We should be angry about that. It's in the shadow of City Hall, and it's getting worse. And I'm angry to see small business owners that I know packing up and leaving. So it's more of a personal thing for me now. I'm pissed off that my wife and I can no longer go for a walk in our own neighborhood at night like we used to after dinner. That's just wrong. Let's fix it.
As a follow up to that, did she ever reach out to you in terms of ways you guys could work together?
We did. Okay. And we met.
I'm Kevin
Last
Getz.
question.
Kevin Getz. I'm the CEO of Screen Engine, which services the motion picture and film industry. The lineage, legacy of this entire town was born on our industry. The World Affairs Council, LA World Affairs Council, has a great legacy, a great lineage under the now beautiful leadership of Maria Contreras-Sweet, and a great board. We need your help. We are at a great crossroads of this incredible organization, and we have an opportunity to be the place where ordinary citizens can come together, as we said, to have these kind of conversations. No one else does it. We have to engage the citizens of the city. Every race, every creed, every religion, straight, gay, all of the above. We need leaders like you who understand the importance of that and can help us engage with the best and the brightest so this becomes a place of empowerment, enrichment, and the ask is not to shame you publicly. Will you help us? We hope you will. And thank you. I have such great respect for you.
Well, thank you. Of course I'll help you.
What does that actually mean?
He's here.
Uh,
Give him some credit. He's
Listen,
here. No.
I think what you're doing is incredible, because I just go back and sorry, I'll just take 1 minute.
No.
I don't want
Please,
anybody
please
to
go
think
on,
I
go on.
don't believe in this city. I don't want anybody to think that I don't believe everything can get solved. I do. And it is going to start in rooms like this, of people getting together and talking and helping in their local communities and supporting the city and supporting philanthropies. There's no doubt. I'm all in. That's why I'm here, right? So God bless you for what you're doing. I've known Maria for years, and I think she's one of the great leaders of our state and our country. So let's just get our butts out of our seats and go make this city as great as it can be, because there's nothing like it in the world. There's not a place like it in the world.
And I'll just add one thing to that as well. You didn't ask me for my help, but I'm going to offer it anyways, because I believe. No, I think what is going on here on a night like tonight is so important to our city, to our state, and at a time when so much of our democracy is at a perilous moment, with people screaming at each other, living in echo chambers, not communicating, not trusting information from either side. We need organizations like this to help bridge those gaps, to have the conversations. It is so important. So I'm willing to help however I can. I know everybody in here is as well. And a quick shout out, because I will always promote myself, because the station doesn't give me any budget to do it. If you ever want to watch me, I'm on at 5, 6, and 10 on Fox 11 every night. We do a show called The Issue Is, which is a statewide political show that I'm really proud of, that I write and host and produce and book, which airs Friday nights at 10:30. Tomorrow night we have Nathan Hochman on, or Friday night we have Nathan Hochman on talking about the city. But these conversations are so important, and the best way, if you were asking what can I do, you were asking earlier, to help in terms of getting this information out from a media perspective. The reason that so many people watch Pursuits, or the reason that we do Pursuits, because people watch Pursuits. If we as a collective audience demand more nuanced political conversations, we demand more good news, if we demand solutions journalism, if we reward that with our attention, with our clicks, with our views, all that stuff, there will be a marketplace for that, and then bosses will do it more. So all of us have a responsibility in lifting up the kind of reporting, the kind of leaders, the kind of citizens that we want, and together we can help make that happen. So that's my sermon. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Wow, what a wonderful conversation. I feel like a villain who is trying to stop this, because this has been absolutely incredible. Thank you, Alex. It is so refreshing to hear a leader who not only understands the problems, but has the drive and the leadership to actually solve those problems. I think, after hearing this, I just feel so fortunate to be part of this conversation, have been present. Rick, I hope, I'm going to ask our audience if you want Rick to run for governor, how about a big round of applause, please? We want you. We want you to go home.
Obligatory, but very kind.
Are you donating though?
That comes next. We honestly want you to feel that there is great momentum behind you. And I truly wish you could be governor and the mayor at both at the same time. But this is, but you know, we can't thank you enough, Rick and Elex. It's been an absolutely incredible conversation, and we're going to thank you in a more tangible way in just a moment. But before we do, I first want to say thanks to Father Greg and all of Loyola for being part of this and allowing this very special place. This is just an incredible place, and where we are right now. Thank you for being our co-sponsor here. I want to thank our sponsors for this, Michael Riley, David Addition, and thank you so much for this, as well as our board members, our chair, Maria Contreras-Sweet. I also want to thank all of you for being here tonight, for being part of this incredible discussion. And I couldn't agree more with Elex. This is the kind of dialogue that we need to have, that we should be having. And I am so happy that the World Affairs Council and together with Loyola High School, we're able to put this on. And I hope those of you who are not members will join and be part of this. We want you to be part of this and continue this kind of dialogue. It's so important. And by the way, I couldn't agree more with Kevin. We really need your help, Rick. So I'll be back. I was talking with Kayla earlier. She's going to put me in touch with the right people. And so there's Kayla. We've talked to her. I want to ask your help though. Will you please join me in thanking all of our staff and interns and volunteers for helping put on this great event. And by the way, I should mention, I'm Richard Downey. I'm the president and CEO of the Los Angeles World Affairs Council and Town Hall. And it truly is an honor and privilege to have all of you here join with us tonight. And I hope you'll join us again. We have a great set of events coming up. On the 29th, we have the Consul General of Mexico. We're talking about U.S. Relationship with Mexico with the new president down there. That'll be at his residence on the 29th of October, rather. On the 1st of November, we have Stephen Cook from the Council on Foreign Relations, who will be talking about the Middle East, and a whole series that I hope you'll check on our website to do. But before I finish, I'd like to call up Michael Riley, one of our board members, and by the way, also an alumnus of Loyola High School. And I'd also like to call up Maria Contreras-Sweet and David Addition. But Michael will be giving you a more tangible way of our thanks. Will you please help me welcome Michael Riley, our board member?
Great. I think I have my bases covered, Loyola and USC. Rick, your leadership in the community is absolutely visionary and inspirational to us all. On behalf of the Los Angeles World Affairs Council, I want to thank you for sharing common sense solutions that give us so much hope for this great city of Los Angeles. We thought it was only fitting to present you with a token of appreciation. What else but a book on the history of Los Angeles then and now. Thank you very much.